The opinions expressed on this program represent the viewpoints of individual authors or contributors and do not necessarily reflect those of Troy University. This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're very fortunate tonight to have as our guest the star of Alabama State Senate, Garlan Gudger, who is President Pro Tem of the Alabama State Senate. And we really thank him for taking time out of his busy schedule. This is in the waning days of a legislative session, and Garlan runs the Senate, so he took time out of his busy schedule to come down here downtown Montgomery to be with us, and brought his beautiful wife Heather with him.
That's right.
Good to have you on the show, Garlan.
Thank you, Steve, for having us. We appreciate being here.
We'll do it more often every year if you don't mind.
I'd be more than happy to. Anytime you call, I like to come running and seeing what you've got. It's always fun to hang out with you.
Well, you're one of my favorite senators, and I said that when you first came.
You did.
So I'm not saying because you're pro tem now.
I have learned that everybody's favorite senator is Jabbo Wagner. I'm always at least maybe 2 through 10, but at least I'm one of the favorites, so that's good.
You know Jabbo loves you, and I'm crazy about you too. But Jabbo, he really likes his book.
He does. He's proud of his book. And it really describes a lot of the stories of his life and everything that's happened. Not all of them, some of them, but you did a great job on the way that you were helping to write that and promote that. And I just want to tell you thank you for doing that. It means a lot to not only him, but to the Alabama State Senate and to everybody that knows Jabbo, how great of a man he is.
Well, he is a great guy. You know, he's so humble. You know, he takes a lot of time with the younger state senators and everything. And one of his daughters, you gave a great tribute in the book, by the way. Your tribute was one of the best. You could tell it was genuine, and you cared about him. But we're talking about Jabbo Wagner. I wrote Jabbo Wagner's biography. He's the longest serving state senator in history and serves as chairman of the Rules Committee in the state senate. But Garlan wrote a great tribute for the book, but his daughter said this: he never gets flustered. You know, as much as I know this time of the session, when it's last waning days, everybody's beating his door down. He's chairman of rules to get his bills on the calendar, and yours too. But he just takes it with the days.
He does. The last few weeks, there's more and more pressure, like put yourself in a vice and tightens up each week, gets a little bit more tight until you definitely feel the pressure. But Jabbo's always handled it very well. And it's just even keel the whole time.
I know.
He's always been that way. It's pretty impressive that he's able to have that attribute that God gave him.
Garlan, I fell in love with your class when y'all came.
Yeah.
You know, you and old Barfoot were
Good
back
people.
there in that room together,
Yeah.
and you fixed your office up so nice with your architectural stuff, your
Yeah.
business and everything. And I'll go back there now and say, who got Garlan Gudger's office? Because you fixed it up so nice.
I put a lot of wainscoting in, walnut and chestnut, and then some oak on the walls, stained it all real nice. So Wes Kitchens moved into that office. So he came to me the other day and said, I just really like this office. No one else has got one like mine in the whole State House. So he was proud of it. So, you know, I couldn't take the wood off the walls with me, so I just let him keep it.
Garlan, you know, when I'm not the sake of that, I've written this and I've said this, my observation over the years. There comes a time during some quadrennium when a special class will come in, and I think your class is a pretty large class. Y'all came in 2018?
That's correct.
It was you and Dan Roberts and my cousin Will Barfoot.
Sam Gavan.
Name all of them if you would.
So Randy Price, Andrew Jones, Will Barfoot, Sam Gavan, Dan Roberts, myself, and I'm missing somebody else, and I apologize.
Elliot, isn't it?
Oh, Chris Elliott. Yeah, of course. How do you forget Elliott, right?
I
Of all
know.
people, anyway.
Did you say Chastain?
Yeah, Donnie came in from the House, and then at the same time, David Sessions came in from the House, and Jack Williams came in from the House. All in 2018.
Is that 9?
Yeah, so what we ended up doing total was 8 plus 3, so you'd have a total of 11.
That's a third of the Senate.
That's a third of the Senate. And we called them the June code transfers that came up from the House, right? Donnie Chastain, David Sessions, and Jack Williams. And then we said we were the redshirt freshmen that came up, our original freshman class. So we work well together, though, and we went back and forth on many issues. But what's great about our class, being a third of the Senate that came in 2018, is that we're from different parts of the state. We're different ages. We have different hobbies, and we have different backgrounds as far as our public service life, and what our private life is different. Like I'm a construction and small business. You know, Barfoot's an attorney. You've got a different attorney that's on there. You got Chris Elliott, that was on county commission. I was on city council. So we really cover a wide, can kind of spread a wide net over all the different attributes of what Alabama has to offer.
You really do. I hadn't thought about it in that aspect, but I knew I liked y'all, and y'all had a lot of talent. You're not even 50 years old. You're like 48 years old, aren't you?
I just turned 50 a week and a half ago.
I was wondering if you hadn't even made 50 yet.
I just hit 50.
But you know, you've had a long career. First of all, you are Coleman through and through. You were born and raised there.
I am.
And your daddy was an administrator at the community college, the famous community college system. And your mama's Miss Dot.
That's right.
And y'all are real active in the First Baptist Church. You know, but what I'm getting around to saying is, Garlan Coleman has become the capital of Alabama's political future. I mean, the last 30 years, you've had 2 or 3 governors. You had Guy Hunt. Mm-hmm. You had Jim Folsom Jr.
Big Jim.
You had Big Jim before that. I'm talking about the last 30 years, but Big Jim before that. By the way, when I called you one day and he said, call my mama because it's her birthday, I called Miss Dot, had a good visit with her. And I said, Miss Dot, do you remember any stories about Big Jim? She said, oh, I remember very well. And she said Big Jim was late in life. He couldn't hear anything. And he'd sit there in the First Baptist Church and shout out at Jamel.
Yeah.
You know, personal things like, you know, did you go to the store yesterday? And everybody in the church could hear it.
Yeah.
Have you heard Dot tell you that?
She told
Do
me
you
a
remember
lot
as
of
a
those
boy
different
seeing hearing that?
There's different ones anyway. He got hard of hearing at the end of his life, didn't put hearing aids in at that time, and so he just would scream everywhere he went and thought he was just speaking normal, but he wasn't. But let me tell you, the Folsom family is still strong in Coleman, Alabama, and Jenny Folsom is on city council. She's the president, madam.
Now, how is she kin? Is she kin?
She is. She's married to Jack, which was
okay. She's married Jack's wife then.
Exactly. And so, but she's doing well. So you still have a lot of Folsoms, and obviously Miss
Bama
Marshall's
and I
up
were
there.
the same age.
How were you?
Yeah, we paged together
Yeah.
when we were little children.
There, I'm telling you.
She was a beautiful girl.
There's some great photographs of Bama and that whole family, anyway, especially down here in Montgomery.
Yeah, that's a great legacy. That folks. I love Little Jim.
Oh,
He was my favorite governor
He's wonderful.
that I served with because he was the only one that was my age.
Really?
Yeah, he'd call you over there, the governor's man, he'd old Charlie Waldrop, say, Flowers, come on over here. And that's how to go back in Big Jim's room, you know.
Yeah.
And they made Big Jim's room like it was. And you know how he talked. But I was friends with Marcia in college.
Yeah, Marcia, she's still a go-getter and just fiery, feisty lady that just makes things happen.
She is.
And she is great, but she's always been an advocate for Alabama, same as Jim, Little Jim. But I was walking down the street here last week, and Little Jim's walking out, just me and him, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. So we stopped and we talked for a while, and he came up to the office later. But it's just good seeing him back around Montgomery sometimes.
You see the documentary?
Yes, the documentary, and we're going to play it again May 14th here on his birthday in Montgomery.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so just let you know.
They hadn't told me that.
They just told me last night. So I wanted to
okay,
make
well,
sure
I guess Pete Conroy will let me know.
they'll let you know, but I wanted to make sure that we talked about it on the show so people, if they were in Montgomery, could come see the documentary on his life and his political life, and I think that's just really important for people to know the history.
Folks, we're talking about a documentary that public television has done on Jim Folsom Jr. and his instrumental attraction of Mercedes to Alabama.
Unbelievable.
That's one of the biggest coups. He's got a legacy.
No doubt about it.
Ain't no question. That was a domino of the whole thing, Garlan.
Yep.
And, you know, Billy Joe Camp had a tie with that too. They bring it out how old Billy Joe's from Coleman County.
That's right.
Handsful.
And then we had Tom Drake, Speaker of the House.
He was my speaker when I first got in the House.
It was big. And then you've had Fess St. John, Pro Tem of the Senate. And of all people, guess who else was from Coleman, but didn't represent Coleman when they got Pro Tem, but's from Coleman, is Joe Fine. And so he's
was Joe born in Coleman?
He's in Hanceville, Alabama.
I did not know that.
I say that I've had 2 Pro Tems before me, Fess St. John, and then our Fine St. John, and then I still claim Joe, but he didn't represent Coleman, but he was born and raised there.
You know, Shelby was good friends with old St. John, that older St. John.
Very good.
Pro Tem, you know.
That's right. They were close friends.
You know who was a power from Coleman, too, where Tom was? Tom was so close to Wallace. Wallace made him Speaker of the House.
That's right.
My first term in the House, I had Wallace's hometown in my district.
Okay.
I had Pike and Barber. I had that part of Barber But anyway, Drake called me and says I had committed to going to Wallace for his choice for speaker, and I was the first one Drake called. He was so loyal to Wallace.
He was fun. You know,
he drove back and forth every night.
Every night he drove back and forth to Coleman, Alabama, and then before that was a professional wrestler, which is, I mean, his personality was just huge.
He really was.
Yeah.
He was a good man. But y'all have got to get, and see, before you came to the Senate, you served like 15 years on the city council, didn't you?
I did, right at 15 years, and 4 of those years I was just came on and the youngest city councilman in history. And then in 2008, I took over as president and stayed there for another 10 years as a decade as president of city council, running the budgets and doing exactly what I'm doing now, but on a smaller scale.
Do you know, growing up, were you active in like Key Club?
I was, yes.
Yeah, I was too. And remember Stanley Johnson, who was from Coleman?
Yeah.
Coleman had a great Key Club legacy. Matter of fact, Mike Waters. Oh yeah. My friend Mike Waters was contemporary of mine. He was president of Key Club International. I saw him at the Folsom documentary in Hoover.
Good people.
He came to that. Mike Waters did.
Yeah, good people.
Is he still living in Coleman?
He is.
Coleman's got a great legacy.
It does, and it's been political. They've got a lot of businesses and people that want to support good people and good candidates in Coleman, Alabama. So we're blessed that Coleman's grown from where it was, 25 years ago, and now it's really becoming kind of a mecca for festivals on the weekends, and a small destination town for shopping and cafes and boutique hotels. And so if people are wanting to spend time there, but it's a nice, clean, well-lit city. People want to be able to have pedestrian walk through the streets, and that's what we have now. So we're beginning to have this quaint little town from when it was just a working town, 25 years ago. So we're blessed to have people coming in from all over, and we can't always forget about the highway system that goes through there. You got highways 31, 157, 69, Interstate 65, Highway 31 right through the middle of it, and the railroad tracks. I mean, so we're blessed to be in a cross section. And if you really looked at all of the Southeast, Coleman, Alabama is like the exact hairpin of the center of the South, and it's pretty neat.
Is it?
It is, yeah, it's really neat.
Also, Garlan, do you know that, I found this out when you talk to someone in economic development or Chamber of Commerce types, and they talk about Coleman, they realize that geographically, right there on the interstate, you're halfway, you're 50 miles from Birmingham and 50 miles to Huntsville. Exactly. With all the growth in Huntsville, I've heard people say that you have a wife that drives to Huntsville to work at the Redstone Arsenal, and the husband drives to Birmingham to practice law or something.
We have a lot of friends that do that are married couple friends that we hang out with, Heather and I, and they wake up in the morning, go opposite directions, come back because they love Coleman so much. And it's always been fun for me growing up in Coleman because everyone says, well, where is Coleman? And now when I tell people I'm from Coleman, they know where it is. And so it makes me feel good that Coleman's kind of exploding. Some people want to continue that growth and progress, and I think you've got a good leadership in the city. And as we work forward to making Coleman the best place it can be. But I think it's based on the people, though, Steve.
It's got to be.
And I think the leadership and the people like Peggy Smith, that was there for 54 years in economic development, and Dale Greer and Donald Green and Max Townsend and Woody Jacobs and the council, Clint Hollingsworth that's on there now. I think that you got great people that are really trying to do what's right, and they're sacrificing their time and their family time, just like we do here at the State House, so that they can make their community better. And they've done a great job. But that mindset has jumped from generation to generation, and it's only gotten better and better.
However, let me say this. I know that it's had a tremendous growth in the last 25 years and made an economic and political impact on the state. But as far back as 25 years ago, I don't know if you realize this, maybe because of the demographics of Coleman, but Coleman had the highest per capita income of any county in the state.
That's right.
25 years. Did you know that?
Yeah, I didn't know it was that high, 25 years ago.
It was like the farmers have always done well there.
Right. It's agricultural.
And the banks have always done well.
Very much so.
And there's a lot of money in Coleman.
There is. There's a lot of banks. What happens, I think, is the mindset, if you go back in history, from 1872 when we were founded, it was a German-based community.
The frugality of it.
That's right. And so people come through and they say, what are you missing in Coleman that we could help produce? I said, well, I'll tell you exactly what we're missing is the arts. And the reason we're missing the arts is because we're a German-based community, and by having money, you spent that on something that made you money. So Germans did not care to spend $500,000 even today on a tractor because it made you money. but they're not going to spend $1,000 on a piece of art that's not going to give you a return. So that's just a mindset, and it's been kind of interesting these last 25 years as we grow, seeing people come in and say, we need more arts and sculptures and stuff, but it's just a different mindset than in the history of that community. But because of that German mindset, they saved all their money, they put it into the banks,
That's what it was.
and the banks grew, and it was a wealthy city.
That's what it was. It was German
It was a German
frugality.
mindset,
It was German frugality. That's what made it.
They made signs in Cincinnati, then CNN Railroad, and said, if you come to Coleman, Alabama, this is the price, but you need to speak German. German was the main language in Coleman until like the mid-1940s.
No.
Yes.
German. Yeah,
German.
They spoke German.
Yes.
I
all
didn't
the
know
way
it had that much
German
of a German
restaurants.
influence.
Oh, it was, the whole town was German, but it spoke German all the way through the 1940s, and then English started taking over.
Why did the Germans decide to live in Coleman?
Colonel Coleman, with a K, not a C, came over from Germany and got a land grant, and so he was a German, obviously, and so he was in Cincinnati, and then brought everyone down the railroad and said, if you're German, we're going to start a German colony down here in Alabama.
But now, they must have been Catholic, because that's where that St. Bernard thing.
That's correct, St. Bernard.
So they were Catholic more than Baptists,
That
more
is
than the
correct.
Germans were?
That is correct.
So you got a big Catholic influence in Germany.
Without the Catholics, I don't think Coleman would have ever been founded, but there's a massive church right downtown that's there with two huge golden steeples, and then you've got the St. Bernard, where the monks are on one side of the road, and then you've got the Abbey, which is about 50 nuns on the other side of the road. And it's funny, I said there's got to be a tunnel connecting them to somewhere underneath, down the river somewhere. But their base was originally Coleman College, and if you look back where it is now, Coleman College has over the years turned into Wallace State Community College.
So now what was St. Bernard College is now Wallace Community College.
That's correct.
They took it over.
The college itself turned into Wallace State Community College.
I didn't know that.
And to the junior college system, and where St. Bernard was, that school now is a prep school for 9th through 12th grade.
Did not know that. You know, when I was a boy, St. Bernard had a good basketball team, and they'd play Troy State.
Oh, really? I did not know
Yeah,
that.
they had a good basketball team.
I did not
Even
know.
though they were private school. But you know, Big Jim in his latter years would go out there on Wednesday night and have supper with those priests.
Oh, yeah.
And drink wine with them.
That's good. They would make their own wine still to this day, and rye bread. They sell rye bread now at the gift store that they make every day. It's unreal.
You know, Coleman's got great heritage. What I want to ask you, too, is one thing that's also combined with the growth in the interstate with folks going to Huntsville and Birmingham, but also Coleman itself growing to around 45 to 50,000 people. Your hospital, and there's an article in Yellowhammer News about how successful that hospital has been. I think your administrator, James Clemens, deserves a lot of credit for that.
Absolutely.
And you do for being a leader in the thing and being on the city council. But that hospital has become one of the best hospitals in the state.
It is, Coleman Regional.
They got about 100 doctors there, don't they?
That's unbelievable, yes. And they're continuing to grow. But they've done everything they needed to do to make sure that they stayed in the black. And when he got there, they were in the red. And he has done the hard decisions that it takes to make hospitals work in today's society. And he's made those decisions. And so sometimes those decisions, as you well know, when you have change, is tough.
Yeah.
But he has done that. We're in the black, and our hospital is thriving and doing well when you see a lot of these, especially rural hospitals, not doing as well. But we are a regional hospital, and we're really right in between Huntsville and Birmingham. So anywhere in that surrounding area, either from the left and right, Blount County and Winston County, they all come to Coleman. And so it's been a blessing for us to be able to have that hospital continue to grow.
It really has, and you deserve some credit for that, for being on the city council for 15 years and president.
Back to James. James really deserves that credit. He and his administrator and
He
the board of directors.
He came from. I met with him and visited with him. He's a great administrator. He came from. He's been in Coleman about 10 years now.
He has been. He's doing well anyway.
But that hospital is a real. You're poised to be a really growth center. You already are, because your hospital is full service. And your school system's good. It's got to be a good school system.
Yes, usually in the top 3 every year in Coleman County and Coleman City. And we're blessed to have good teachers and good kids, and everyone really kind of does what they're supposed to do, and the parents are still involved. And that's the difference, that a lot of times you're not able to send your kids and it's through other parts of the state to the public schools. You are able to. And I would rather, my children, both of them, went to the Coleman public schools versus a private school, and in Coleman, that's just what you do. And so I'm glad to be able to have public school there.
Well, you know, that brings me to this question. I'm not going to try to put you on the spot where you vote on something. I don't know how you voted on it, but when that school choice thing came up last year, and they took a bunch of money and did the school choice. I'm Republican. I'm conservative, but I wondered how the legislators from upscale areas like Cullman and Gunnersville and Huntsville, who have excellent school systems, how they would, and probably all their children go to public school and should, because it's like going to private school if you go to the Cullman City School System.
Correct.
And that's probably one of the reasons why your friends live in Cullman rather than live in Huntsville or Birmingham. They'd rather live in a place where there's somebody and you got every amenity you can have.
It is.
With a great hospital, a great school system. School system is the main thing.
That's right.
But I wondered how, I wonder how the Gunnersville, Cullman, Huntsville legislators think about, that school choice, because do you have private schools up there?
We do have private schools, and part of that school choice bill, when looking through, if it ran through the foundation filtering program, it was going to take $2.8 million away from my public
That's what I
schools
was
district.
wondering.
And it was going to go to other places. And so because we don't have large private schools, and so what I'm seeing now is after the first 2 years of the people on the bottom of the poverty are trying to get from one school to another because they need to be out because of safety, or they're getting bullied every day, and you can't get out of that particular zone that you're in. Coleman's never had that, and let me tell you why. Coleman, if you're in the Coleman County and you said, I want to go to Coleman City, you go and you sign up, you pay a fee, and you go there the next year, right? And so there's a limited spots for that, but you can do that right now. So it's kind of open enrollment as we speak. Having said that, with my no vote, and I was the only Republican.
Well,
that's
how I would have voted if I lived in Cullman.
Yeah, and
I wouldn't have voted for that to send $2.8 million to Montgomery to send the children to private school to Montgomery.
Exactly.
That's what you're doing.
And I had to vote for my district.
Well, I'm proud to know that. I didn't even know how you voted, but I thought,
Yeah.
I don't know how someone from Cullman
Right.
or Marshall County or Madison County
can vote for that.
I mean, really, you're taking money out of your school system to send it so rich parents in Montgomery can send their children to Montgomery Academy.
That's right. There's a lot of pressure on us at the same time, but it didn't bother me because when I got back home, and even though I did that and I got a lot of pressure here, my school systems in Marion County gave me awards for not standing up and saying this
They
is
got
the
a
right thing
good
to do.
system in Marion.
No, they do. Haleyville over there in
Uh-huh.
Winston County, and then you've got in Marion County, they do a great schools.
Now you've got Cullman, Marion, and Winston.
Those three.
The
I
great
go
state
from
of
free state of Winston. That's a great story too.
They still have that thing over there.
Sure do. They have the Chitlin
Looney's-
Supper over
Looney's
there, and then they have Looney's Tavern is open,
Uh-huh.
and they're just starting to redo the putt-putt course and starting to redo the amphitheater to start having concerts there.
How many people, like in your district, what part of the population is in Cullman, what in Marion, and what in Winston?
You're around 70 to 72% that's in Coleman County, and then around 15 and 15 in the other two counties. And so
I'm in
it's-
those papers over there.
Oh, everybody knows who you are, Steve. You
I
go
know.
statewide, buddy.
Cullman, and Cullman, all those.
Miss Dot knows you, that's for sure.
That's right. Everybody's mama reads my column. That shows you how old I am. Anyway, but I'm glad I didn't know how you voted, but I got to thinking when that thing came up, I said, that really is not. I mean, we got a lot of people in North Alabama who got really, really good school systems.
Yeah.
And I bet Scottsboro people I bet Livingston had a hard vote on that thing, didn't he?
They sure did anyway. I was the only,
Livingston, how do you do on it,
he voted yes. I was the only Republican in the Senate that voted no, but I just thought it was the right thing to do. And in the end,
your district, it was.
It was my district. Now, at that time, I was still rank and file and chairman of economic development, so I'd voted my district. Where I am now, not only do I have to vote my district, but I have to think about the other 34 senators that I'm in charge of, and trying to make sure that we keep peace and all in the same boat and row in the same direction. So right now, I was glad I was able to take that vote, and I'm proud of that vote. And people ask me all the time, why would you do that? That was such a good thing. And it is, but I'm in my district doesn't need it.
No,
so there's a difference there.
Garlan, this time last year, you were a rank and file,
Right.
second term senator. Now, when did Greg Reed leave pro tem to be workforce development? It was less than a year ago, wasn't it?
It was less than a year ago, and so he finished up last session. And then afterwards, there was a rumor that he was leaving, but it wasn't true. And then I had an accident, as you well know, on the lake. And then when I started getting healed again, about 2 months after that, 2.5 months, there was another rumor that he was leaving to go somewhere else. And it was true, obviously. And so I called him and said, I need to come meet with you once I got healed up. And I said, is this true? And he said, yeah. He said, you need to be thinking about it. And I told him I thought that I needed to do that. And I decided to run. And obviously I'm here now. So it's been within a year, he left. I had a pretty bad accident where I thought I might never be able to walk again. to running for this position, being back in charge of the Alabama State Senate, and this is my first session in charge of being the pro tem of the Senate.
It's been an eventful year, hasn't it?
It's been a very eventful year. I'm just thankful that that young lady, Miss Heather's still with me anyway, because she's had to put up with me.
Heather's from Huntsville originally. isn't
She is.
Y'all
She
met
is.
at Sanford?
We actually met when she walked through my front doors of my store at Southern Accents Architectural.
You were
Antiques
already out of
in
Sanford
Coleman.
and everything.
I was out, and then she walked through the front doors, and I said, "That's her right there. That's the
What
one."
was
I
she
want."
doing? She buying something for her house?
She
or
was
something?
with her mother from Huntsville, taking a trip down to see her friends in Birmingham for a lunch, and they canceled. And they were halfway there, which is Coleman. And so she said, "Let's go check on our doors." Her mother was buying some doors for a house in the Ledges, and they walked in. And so when she walked in, I was at the front desk, and she just couldn't help herself after that anyway.
Garlan, let me ask you this. You went to Sanford and finished at Auburn, though.
That's correct.
Started playing football at Sanford. Really got about a minute and a half left. Tell our viewers real quickly about what's developing at Smith Lake, because that's part of your district. In Smith Lake, part of it's in Coleman.
Part of it's in mine, and parts of it in Jabos in Walker County. Some is in Winston County, which is both.
But there's
of those
going to
cities.
be a lot of development at Smith Lake.
Yeah, there's an opportunity to be development at Smith Lake. And if you haven't been up there, there's $1 million homes, one right after the other. And there's a lot of family
Already
homes.
$1 million homes up
There,
there.
oh, yeah, they just sold a home for $4.8 million, on the lake. Having said that, there's a huge development, one of the largest developments that would be happening in North Alabama, around a $250 million investment. Total capital outlay would be about $1.14 billion. 300 jobs would be created, a world-class resort, a private airstrip, a conference center, a hotel, 200-room hotel, rental houses. You've got a marina that would be set up, walking trails, a shooting galleries, and then a restaurant and a med spa. All that rolled into one, and it would be through the partnership of the City Council of Coleman and this developer.
So Coleman is a lead city in the thing.
That is correct. They went. The developer went to.
Well, Jasper's got as much hunting that thing as y'all do, don't they?
They do. That particular resort is in Coleman County, so it's staying in Coleman County.
It'll all be in Coleman County.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they went to the Coleman County Commission, and they were not able to do an infrastructure bond for them. Said they didn't want to, so the developer tried to keep his project alive and went to the City Council. And so when that happened, there was a theory: do they want to do that or not? And the City Council said, "Yeah, I think so, but I had to do something at the state legislature because they only had 6 days left." And so from that, I've passed a bill with Jabo to keep that alive for a year. And if a developer can do it, great. If he can't, then after a year, it's not going to happen. But I think that I have faith in it, and I believe that it could happen.
Well, that's a good thing you got it all in Coleman, because all the future growth will be in your county. Then.
That's correct. Anyway.
And all the income and sales tax, everything like that.
Steve, as you well know, if somebody's going to put that much money in some place or a county in Alabama, you want it to be in your district. And so I'm blessed to be able to have that in my district if it happens.
That's a coup.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, our time's up. Folks, our guest today has been State Senate President Pro Tem Garlan Gudger, from Republican from Coleman, and he is on a fast track. He's got a drinking out of a water hose right now in the last day of the session. We thank him for being with us, and we thank you viewers for watching. Hope you tune in again next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you, Garlan.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it.
Appreciate your friendship.
This has been Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, a production of Troy University Television. Opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Troy University, its administration, faculty, staff, or students.